it seems like it's 6:32, so we'll let people join and we'll just go ahead and get started. First off, thanks to everybody for joining and for taking time out of your night to come be with us and talk a little bit about transit and some changes that are coming to the transit system this summer. I think we're going to start with some introductions because as those of you that ride transit often, our drivers are probably very familiar to you, but you might not have had a chance to meet some of us who work on the administrative side of things who aren't necessarily on the buses every day with you as our drivers are. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself first. I'm Darian Nagelgam. I'm the Director of Transportation Services for the City of Iowa City. And Mark Rummel, if you can give a wave, Mark. Mark is the Associate Director of Transportation Services. He is going to be I will be the host for this evening's presentation. Mark's going to be our Q&A moderator. Susie Bethel, if Susie's out there, I don't have everybody's face on my screen, but I hope she can give a wave. She is our training and AM operations supervisor. So she handles all of the early morning detail. We also have with us tonight Scott Amlong. Scott, if you're out there, if you can give a wave. Scott is our fleet operations supervisor. We also have Curtis Brenton with us tonight. Curtis is our midday and PM operations supervisor. If you can give a wave, Curtis. We also have Gus Gustavson. He is our evening operations supervisor, and he is one of our utility players who helps to cover our parking operations and also helps to cover evening transit operations as well. Same with Mark Fay. Mark Fay is a parking operations supervisor who is also well-versed in everything transit, and he is here tonight. Give a wave. And Danny Bissell, who I do not believe is with us tonight, but he's out of the office right now, but he is another operations supervisor who focuses on both parking and our transit operations. So just wanted to give you a moment to introduce the team who's here with you tonight. All right, tonight's agenda. So we'll talk a little bit about just some housekeeping items, how the night is going to flow. We'll talk about Iowa City Area Transit Study, which is really the reason why we're all here tonight, and a project that we've been working on for the last couple of years. We'll talk about mission, goals, objectives. I'll give you a little background, maybe take a little trip down memory lane. We'll talk about what we heard from the public during that process and what we've done and what we're presenting in response. We'll talk about some of the changes coming to the transit system this summer, some of the route changes, some of the fare and transfer policy proposals, and then we'll talk about what's next for Iowa City. So talk about some of the vision items, which are, really it's what we heard from the community that would, really help to bridge some of those transportation gaps that are there currently. We'll talk about electric buses. We'll talk about a Sunday service 2-year pilot, and we'll talk about that we're exploring some, late night and overnight on-demand partnership service options. All right, so first and foremost, housekeeping and FYI. So tonight's gonna be a formal presentation. So I'll be presenting on the proposed changes to the transit system. If you want to ask questions as we're going along, we'll address them at the end. We'll have kind of a Q&A at the end. You can either enter comments or questions into the chat feature, or you can raise your hand during the Q&A. And you can do that by using the reactions button and raising your hand. And Mr. Mark Rummel will help guide us through that Q&A when we get to the end. I also wanted to let you know that the webinar and the presentation are being recorded, and they will be available. So if you have to get up, if your dinner's burning and you got to run, or you got kids running around, we're all multitasking nowadays. We absolutely understand. If you miss part of it, it's going to be available for you on our transit website, as will all the materials that you'll see tonight. And I just want to let you know up front, the proposed changes to the bus routes, the stops, and the bus schedules are coming on August 2nd. So we have a few months until the changes happen, but we really want to make sure the public has plenty of time to be aware of the proposed changes, to respond, to ask any questions, to help plan. So August 2nd, which is that would be the first Monday in August, is the date that those would launch. We are making some tweaks to our fare and transfer policies, which are all going to be positive. We're not raising fares, and those will be coming a little bit earlier. We're going to start those after the 4th of July holiday, so that would be July 6th would be the date that those changes are made. Last thing, our new bus schedule has not yet been finalized, so you're going to learn about the routes more than anything tonight and some of the other changes to the system. The bus schedules will be published well in advance of the system changes. We're targeting late June for those, and those will all be published online. We'll be down at the interchange at an information booth. They will be available on the buses. You'll have plenty of time to review the schedule prior to the actual changes happening. All right, so just want to talk a little bit about what brought us here today. And as I mentioned before, and many of you have probably been involved in this and have given us feedback and come to the meetings or given us online feedback, but we commenced the Iowa City Area Transit Study in late 2019. And I would say the two main objectives with that transit study was, first and foremost, to learn how we can optimize and improve the transit system using our existing funds and resources. So figure out how we can better use our resources that we have available to us today, our buses, our funding, our staffing. How can we, how can we rearrange things and make the service better with what we've got currently? And then we also wanted to know what enhancements the community would want if additional funding is required, is acquired. What are the needs that are unmet by the community? And those are kind of our two big objectives with the study. Our mission really is to make transit more dependable for those that rely on it, and make it an easier choice for other people. So that's kind of driving everything that we've done through the study. And some of our goals have really been, faster, more frequent, more reliable service. We want to simplify the system and make it easier for people to understand, which can be a barrier for people to use transit. It's just, it's complicated. It can be complex. So we're really trying to simplify it. We want to improve communications. We want to improve our transit stops and make them more accessible, more comfortable. We have a lofty goal of doubling ridership over the next 10 years. That goal was set before the pandemic, so we're going to have our work cut out for us, but we want to create a system that people really want to use. We really want to focus on, doing what we can to open the doors to as many people that would like to, use transit in Iowa City. We also really want to improve coordination with Coralville Transit and CAMBA. So we have a 3-agency system in the metro area. So we want to know how we can better coordinate our 3 services to provide better service in general and holistically to the metro area community. And part of that is finding ways that we could have more consistent fare and transfer policies between Iowa City and Coralville. Clearly, Campus does not have any fares that they charge on their buses, but make it easier for people to travel between Coralville and Iowa City, make things simpler and more consistent. All right, so this is the memory lane that I was talking about. So I'm just going to give you kind of the Cliff Notes overview of where we've been the last few years. Many of you participated in this process along the way, so some of these things will sound familiar. Some of you, this may be new to you, but I want to talk you through how we've gotten to today. So in August 2019, we launched the study. We did ridership data collection. In the fall, we did a phase 1 public outreach. We had our service and kind of market evaluation. How is our system functioning today? We're going to talk more about public outreach in just a few minutes. We'll get into a little bit more details there. Then in January of 2020, we took all of that feedback that we heard from the community, what's working well, what's not working well, and we presented 3 alternate service scenarios. And again, we went to the public and got an incredible amount of feedback on those 3 potential different ways that we could serve transit from today. And we took all of that feedback, what people liked the best out of those 3 scenarios, what didn't work for people, and we developed one single proposed transit system redesign. So in October and November, I must say here, this is where we took kind of a long COVID-related pause. We, as everybody, were trying to sort out how to keep our transit system running during a pandemic, which was a challenge, but we were really happy that we were able to figure out how to do it safely and comfortably for staff and for the public. So, we were hoping to make some changes last summer based on COVID. That timeline kind of got pushed back a bit, but picking up where I left off in the fall, we presented the preliminary recommendations to the council, city council at their work session and received preliminary feedback regarding that single preferred transit system design and theme and fair recommendations and the priority of potential transit service enhancements. So, again, we presented those potential enhancements, which we'll talk about later tonight, and ask the council, what do you feel is the most important? What are you hearing from the community? Which direction would you like the community to go? So fast forward to March, just a month ago, we presented some potential service enhancements to the city council at their work session. After they prioritized a few different things that they thought were the most important, we got some direction at that point to pursue a 2-year Sunday service pilot, which will happen either later this year or early next year, and further explore later evening on-demand transportation options. And that's really something to kind of fill that gap after the transit service ends for the evening. Which brings us to today. So today we're here to present the proposed transit service changes to you all. And let's go ahead and get that started. All right, so I promised that we're going to talk a little bit about public input before, a little bit more background before we get into the changes. First off, I wanted to thank you because I know many of you who are on this call either filled out the online surveys, which were detailed. It wasn't an easy survey, especially evaluating the 3 potential transit options. It took some work. And, for that first phase of outreach that we did, we had 1,000 riders on board. So we had a team of people who were surveying people on our buses. And we had 1,000 of you all who are our riders respond to those, which was extremely helpful. Then in the fall, we had meetings with community stakeholders and organizations to find out what was working, what wasn't working. We hosted 3 open house events. We had 90 attendees. We had a design your own transit system online survey, which we received 1,300 responses to, which is absolutely incredible. We had direct outreach to transit dependent and housing insecure populations with our partnership with the Community Transportation Committee, and the mobility coordinator really helped to make sure we are getting everybody involved in this process. And then last but not least, we took all of that feedback and then we presented the 3 potential scenarios to the public, and you all came back with 1,400 responses to the online survey, which I said earlier was not an easy survey. And 150 of you came to our public meetings to talk about and tell us what was working with those options and what wasn't working. And of course, emails, phone calls, social media. There was you all reached out to us in many ways, and we're extremely grateful for all that feedback. It certainly made it made the job of trying to imagine what the community wants so much easier. So thank you for that. To summarize what we heard from you all when you through your feedback, the number 1 requested item by far was more frequent bus service. So you want more buses on your routes so that there's not long gaps in between the service, and you can use the service midday. We have very, I would say, peak time heavy transit service here, which really helps, kind of the 8 to 5 commuters, but we don't have as heavy of service currently midday or in the late evenings. So that can be a real challenge for people who either have jobs that are not on an 8 to 5 schedule, or people who want to run errands in the middle of the day. It can create some challenges, and we heard that loud and clear. Sunday service was another highly desired improvement. Currently, we run 6 days a week, and clearly there's some significant demand for Sunday service. We heard that loud and clear from the community. Later bus service was another request we heard. So running later, having more transportation options later in the evening to help support employment in the later evening, help support people who are traveling, entertainment, businesses, all that. We're kind of a 24/7 community, so we heard that loud and clear. More reliable on-time information. This was in the tail end of the bongo era, and it was maybe an app that's getting towards probably at the end of its useful life. We've transitioned not long after we received this feedback. We transitioned to the transit app, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. We also heard from the public improved Saturday service was something that they wanted to see. So, and then the last one I'll highlight is, faster service, more direct routes. So those are kind of the big picture, that the requests that we heard, loud and clear from the community. So now I'm going to transition into kind of what we heard from the community and then what we did in response to what we heard. So as I just mentioned, more frequent buses, please. That was something that we heard loud and clear, far and away, the number one requested item. So what we did and what you'll see tonight is the new transit system design is really focused on arterial streets with less diversion into local streets, parking lots. Most of the routes are in a out and back format, so they're more direct. They're on the same route to the extent possible, as opposed to kind of a circuitous route that would, go one direction from the interchange and come back kind of in a circular fashion. These are more out and back, you'll see. And that really helps to improve service times, gives you less time on the bus. It reduces your travel time, and it enables us to put more buses on the road. We also absorbed routes that had very low ridership into adjacent routes, or in some areas transit service was reallocated to areas of greater need. That's another way we were able to increase the frequency of buses in some areas. We reduced duplicative service and service overlap areas, and that's both Iowa City Transit service overlap areas with Iowa City Transit, and also we took a hard look at areas where CAMBUS and Coralville and Iowa City overlapped, and looked at a better way to distribute transit between the three agencies to make a lot more sense, so there's not a lot of empty seats serving one particular location. Some areas, as part of this increase in frequency, do have further to walk to service, and we'll talk about some of those areas tonight. We have consolidated, or we plan to consolidate some bus stops, so some where it just makes sense to have adjacent stops consolidated at one location. That also will help us increase bus frequency and the speed, and reduce the travel time on the buses. And all of those actions kind of combined allowed us to set up a system where all of our buses will run, the proposal is that all of our buses will run every 30 minutes during peak times, whereas only 7 of them, less than 50% of them do now. And then 2 of those routes will run every 15, 20 minutes. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Also, another thing we heard loud and clear, again, it's that midday service. The vast majority of our service today is 60 minutes or hourly service during the midday, which if you want to make a quick trip, run a quick errand, it's not ideal. It just takes a lot more time to get those errands and those short trips done. So now over half the routes we propose will have buses every 30 minutes or less midday. All right, what else did we hear? We heard we need better Saturday service. So we're proposing more bus service on Saturdays. So how that works is, currently we only have 6 routes that run on the weekend, and they run on a different route than the weekdays. So back to our simplifying our system and making it easier to understand, that can be a little confusing and complicated. You have to, knowing which route to take based on where you're going, based on the time of day, can get kind of complicated. We're proposing that all of our new routes will run the same. It'll be the same route, whether it's in the morning, whether it's at night, whether it's on Saturday, whether it's on Sunday, no matter what day of the week, for simplicity's sake. And all of our routes, all of them will run on Saturdays in this proposal. They'll run about 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The 2 exceptions to that are our East Side Loop, which primarily serves at school peak times. It's just 2 trips we do a day to help school kids get around town. It is open to the public, however. And then the downtown shuttle, which is traditionally not run on days that the university isn't active and in session, which would be on the weekend. All other routes will run on Saturdays. All right, what else do we hear? More reliable service, more on-time service. So focusing our routes on arterial streets with less diversion into local streets, parking lots is really going to help us maintain the buses on time. We simply, by design, had a few routes that were extremely difficult to keep on time, and it was by nature of the design. There's always traffic situations that occur, a random detour from a water line or weather-related detours, but not necessarily those things, but really we just took a hard look at our routes, and we want to figure out how we can build them to stay more on time so we can be more reliable for you who needs to get where you're going at a certain time. So that was our response to the more reliable service. Again, we heard we need Sunday service. So we heard that loud and clear, and the council heard you all as well. And beginning in late 2021 or 2022, Iowa City Transit is going to begin a 2-year pilot of Sunday service. And what that service will look like, it will look exactly like our Saturday service. We're going to just mirror our Saturday, the proposed Saturday service, run it on a Sunday, and we're going to have that for 2 years. And then ultimately, we'll have to come to a decision with council about whether to proceed with that. We figured 2 years would give a reasonable amount of time to build the ridership on Sunday. It's going to take, people time to get used to there being a service, which isn't there, and also give us time to kind of get away from the pandemic a bit, and for our just ridership, people to get more comfortable and confident and more willing to return to transit. So 2 years is the proposed pilot for that. We also heard, can you simplify things? Can you just make it easier to understand and easier to use? So we heard that loud and clear also. And so going forward, all of our routes will have a name and a number. So that's something you'll see on the buses when you come to the interchange. You'll see the number. Those are the 13 routes listed right there. On all of our materials, they will be color coded, which will make it easier to identify the routes. They'll also have the name associated with them. So it just makes it easier to identify the route that's yours. We also don't have 3 or 4 routes that have the word West in it, which is something that all of us are excited about, because it's easy, even those of us who talk transit every single day, it's very easy to get those confused. And so we can only imagine how confusing that has been for the public. So there's only one route that has the word West in it. As I mentioned earlier, no more night and weekend routes that run differently than the route of the same name that runs during the day. So the Oak Crest daytime route will not run different from the Oak Crest night and weekend route. The Oak Crest route will be the Oak Crest route, and that route will be the route that's run all week long, which is a lot simpler and a lot easier to understand and to remember. As I mentioned before, most of our routes they're out and back on same arterial streets, and that's also to make things simpler and easier to understand. We're also looking at our fare system and our bus passes, and one thing that we'll be doing starting in July is all of our bus passes can be used on Coralville Transit, and all of Coralville Transit's bus passes can be used on Iowa City Transit. So that makes it just so much simpler and easier to travel across the metro area for anything that you need. And last but not least, in terms of making things simple, this will be, I think, a really useful change, but transfers will be allowed at any bus stop in Iowa City. Currently, transfers aren't allowed in Iowa City outside of the interchange, and that causes a lot of concerns and questions, and they're going to be allowed anywhere in the system going forward, just to make things simple. And then, of course, there will still be free transfers to Coralville Transit, so that will be a no-cost way to get across the metro area. All right, what else did we hear? We heard that we need more late evening transportation options. So the proposal is to have 6 routes that run until 10 p.m., 2 that run till 9:30 p.m., 2 that run till 8 or 8:30, 1 till 7, 1 till 6:30. We stretched them as late as we possibly could with our existing funding that we have, because we heard loud and clear that later service is something that the community really wants and really needs. We were able to provide new later evening service to the far east side, to the far west side, and to the lower Muscatine Kirkwood areas. These are areas that did not have later evening service before, so we're able to expand it, and we're happy about that. Although we know that there's still more needs than you know what our transit service is able to provide. So we are exploring on-demand partnership options to provide some late night or overnight service for the community when transit is not in service. What else did we hear? We heard, can you make transit more affordable? We heard that loud and clear. It's an affordable option, but there's definitely people in the community that could use the assistance, and we heard that loud and clear. So starting in July, those that are 65 and older, those who are disabled or Medicare card holders or SEEDS card holders will ride for free, and they will ride for free any time of day. So we do have some free and reduced passes that have an, I guess, off-peak requirement, travel requirement, and that means you can't be traveling during the AM or the PM rush hour, so that can be difficult to manage your trips. It puts another complication into your day, and we're removing that complication, and you'll be able to travel any time of day, which will be really great. We've also recognized that that the youth 5 to 18 years, they had a slight discount, but it's really kind of the industry standard across the U.S. To give a 50% discount for youth on fare and passes. So this is going to reduce the transportation burdens on families, and especially on the young folks in the community, and hopefully encourage more people, more kids to get familiar with and ride transit. All right. Another thing we heard is that we need more reliable on-time information and trip planning tools. So again, we introduced the transit app in, gosh, it must have been 2019, in the fall of 2019. And if you don't have it, I highly recommend you download it. It's a wonderful tool. It is what transit has needed since transit was invented. You can find out the arrival time for your bus. You don't really have to know the transit system anymore. It has a trip planning tool just like Google Maps, where it knows your location, because if you have a smartphone, you likely have GPS available. It knows where you're at. You just tell it where you want to go, and it will tell you how to get there using the transit system. So it's a really great tool. You no longer, for example, if on August 2nd, you just use your transit app when all of the routes are new, you wouldn't have to look at the paper schedules at all. It will just tell you how to get where you're going at the time that you want to get there. It also has the bus locator feature, which is really great. So you can find out where your bus is at. You can get predicted arrival times. What we like the most, our favorite feature at Iowa City Transit, is the service notifications, because it is the best way that we can get you really quick information on transit detours, service delays, weather-related interruptions. We especially during February every year, it's always February. There's the last thing that we want are people standing out waiting for a bus that's been delayed. When we can get that information to you, and you can make a choice about, do I go now? Do I stand outside? Do I wait till the bus gets closer? Do I find another way that I need to get home? When will the bus be here? We can provide that information to you in real time now, which we're really excited about. And like I mentioned, the transit app will be updated on August 2nd. So it won't be updated before. So if you want to do some research in advance, we'll have the paper schedules that you can review. But on August 2nd, when we go live, the plan is to have the transit app updated as well, and you'll be able to use that immediately to help route you on the new system. All right, so we took all of those things that I just presented to you into consideration, in the transit system design. Another thing that we looked at was just the average weekday passengers by route. So just to kind of give you a sense of how the ridership was ranked by route, 7th Avenue, Cross Park, and Melrose Express routes had the fewest weekday passengers for kind of our regular weekday routes. Some of our night and weekend routes had fewer, which would be expected because they're night and weekends. And then the routes like Plainview, Free Shuttle, Westwinds, and Oakcrest had the highest number of daily passengers, just to give you kind of an idea of how the system is ranked today. In terms of average weekday passengers per service hour, pretty similar, I would say, but Manville Heights, 7th Avenue, Melrose Express, East Side Express had the fewest passengers per service hour, where the highest passengers per service hour were Plainview, Towncrest, Oakcrest, and the free shuttle. Again, just something, you know, in terms of trying to sort out how things could potentially be shifted around in terms of service in the community, that's another factor, that's another thing that we looked at. All right, so we took all of that information, all of the, you know, what we heard from the community, what we did, we took, you know, the ridership information into consideration. We took, you know, best practices, guiding principles. We had a team of transit consultants who have helped communities, over 30 communities, just like ours, go through this process to develop 3 cost-constrained service scenarios. So these are those 3 scenarios you may remember reviewing in January of 2020. 3 different ways we could provide service. All of them would be using our existing funding that we have today. One focused on frequency, one focused on simplifying coverage, one focused on restructuring and improving the weekends. And from the feedback we heard from the community, we developed the proposed bus system that you see in front of you. So as you saw earlier, we're proposing 13 different routes. The first one would be the South Iowa City, and that, I'm not sure if you probably can't see my mouse, can you? South Iowa City is in yellow, and we're going to go into these in greater detail. I'm just kind of pointing out the location now. We have the Court Street route. We have the East Side loops, the peak trips only. Those are the dotted lines you see over on the right side of the screen. The downtown shuttle, which you can see a bit of it in blue, but it really just winds around the near downtown areas. Lower Muscatine and Kirkwood, as the name would suggest, those are the 2 major corridors that it serves. Peninsula also heads north on Dubuque Street, provides service to the Peninsula area. North Dodge will look very familiar. It's very similar to the service today. Oakcrest and Towncrest are on the same routes. So the routes will look very familiar. Some of the stops will shift a bit, and they won't have night and weekend routes that are different. And then West Iowa City is the orange route. That's Route 10. That will be one that will canvass the north campus of the hospital area and also the far west Iowa City. Rochester route is going to look very familiar. A couple tweaks, we'll talk about those. Highway 1 will serve the Walmart commercial area from downtown and from the Mormon Trek commercial area. And then last but not least, we have South Gilbert. That route is a new route, and that's going to serve, as the name would suggest, South Gilbert Blood area. So we already talked a little bit about some of these highlights, but again, the same routes, days, nights, and weekend, more direct, more Saturday routes, improved access to retail, reduced duplication between Iowa City, Coralville, and CAN bus, really trying to reduce the empty seats that we're all sending to kind of the same location or the same corridor. And the hopes and the plan is, you know, for faster, more direct service, improved on-time performance, less time for you all on a bus, improved weekday evening service, and more service midday. All right, so let's get into the nitty gritty. So changes coming this summer. I think we're just going to take it route by route, starting with the first, Route 1, which will be the South Iowa City route. And this route will head from downtown down Gilbert Street. It will serve Southgate area. It will provide service to Hy-Vee, Cross Park, Burns, Lakeside, and over to Highway 6, where it will loop on Scott Boulevard, Hines Boulevard, and it will circle back. It will just use the same route to get back to the downtown area. So that is the first route. So this South Iowa City is designed to serve the riders of Lakeside, Cross Park, Broadway. It will serve Gilbert Street, Waterfront Hy-Vee, Lakeside Drive, Fairway on the east side, and Hines Road. Some of the service highlights, again, the same route, weekdays, nights, weekends. You don't have to learn 2 different routes and pay attention to your watch and figure out when the routes are switching. It'll have a 30-minute service midday, and that's a big improvement to this area. We had midday service at 60 minutes previously, so this is a really nice change. An hourly service is what we're proposing on Saturday. And the Hollywood area walk to transit will be about 5 to 8 minutes, which is a little different than right now where it's directly served. So that will be one difference for folks in that neighborhood. The hourly service, the hours of service is going to be 6:30 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. And then on the weekends, it's going to be about 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So that is Route 1. Court Street, which is Route 2, as the name suggests, is going to serve Court Street via Burlington Street from downtown. It's going to be kind of a clear straight shot out to the east side. The proposal is to left turn on Camden and kind of make a loop down the new Kenneth extension, and then it will head back downtown on the exact same route. And this route has really been designed to serve the riders of the East Side Express, Court Hill, and 7th Avenue routes. The destinations this route will serve Burlington Court, Scott Park, the Frunholz Miller Park, and City High School will be some of those destinations. The same with all the routes is, it's going to be the same route no matter what time of day. Another benefit is that this route will now have 30-minute service midday, whereas it was hourly service before. So again, that's going to help people who aren't on that 8 to 5 schedule who need to make trips midday. The Huntington Drive area will be served at Court and Camden, which will be a walk to transit of 6 to 9 minutes, which will be a little different than today. And hourly service will be, there will be hourly service on Saturdays, just like all routes. And the hours of service will be 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the weekends. All right, East Side Loop. I'm not going to take you through all of these streets because we will be here for a while if I do that. But needless to say, this is by far our funkiest looking route, and that is because it serves schools. And you'll see that when we get into the next slide. But we have a separate route, and it more or less runs in the reverse during from the AM to the school PM, so kind of that mid-afternoon period. It's going to serve riders of the East Side Loop. We're not really changing the service, but if anybody in the public wants to ride this, you can at any time. It more or less covers City High School, Southeast, Regina, Grantwood Elementary, Systems Unlimited, Iowa City Marketplace. So that's the places that you can get on this route twice a day. And again, it's open to the public, and it's one trip in the AM and then kind of one midday trip. So not a lot of changes to this route, but still definitely a need for it. All right, Route 4 is the downtown shuttle, and this will look very familiar. This is our south downtown shuttle route currently. And this is Washington Street to Dodge Street to Bowery to Gilbert to Court Street, Madison Street, and that is the loop on the downtown shuttle. Every 15 minutes you will see this bus downtown. It's really designed to serve the near downtown neighborhoods, the East Campus, and the CRWC, or the Rec and Wellness Center, the University Center. The North Downtown Shuttle, which we did have in effect until the pandemic, which was discontinued temporarily, so we could allocate that additional capacity to the downtown shuttle during the pandemic, so we can have some extra space. If any of you have seen the downtown shuttle routes midday, you know how packed those buses can be. And ultimately, it was determined that the North Downtown Shuttle would be discontinued. It was just due to very low ridership, and that service was reallocated to the South Downtown Shuttle route, which will be the full downtown shuttle now. So in terms of frequency, this bus comes every 15 minutes. So if you're in the downtown or near downtown areas, this is you don't have to think much about it. You go out to your stop and a bus is going to be there very shortly. And it is proposed to run 7:30 to 6:30 p.m. All right, Lower Muscatine Kirkwood. So this is going to be the 5 route. And as the name suggests, it will serve it will move out of the downtown by Bowery, Gilbert, Bowery, Dodge Street, and then Kirkwood, Lower Muscatine, Highway 6. And this is designed to serve the riders today who ride Mall, 7th Avenue, or the Broadway bus. And the destinations this route will serve are Kirkwood, the Iowa City Marketplace, Eastside Plaza, potentially the Quarters, Bon Air, anything along Highway 6 through there. In terms of the service highlights, same route all the time. This route is going to improve to, the proposal is to improve it to 20-minute service during the day. So during the peak times and midday, it would provide service every 20 minutes, which is great. It's almost to that level you don't really have to think much about it. You just go out to the stop and there's going to be a bus there before you know it. And night and weekends would be a bus every 40 minutes. Hours of service are planned for 6 a.m. to 10:40 p.m. So this will be one of the later routes, and then the weekend would be 7 to 7. All right, the Peninsula route. So this route will seem familiar. It's kind of part of the current Manville Heights route. It's really serving the Peninsula area and the Laura Drive area via North Dubuque Street. So it will head out of downtown via North Dubuque Street, serve the Peninsula area, Foster Road, Laura Drive. And it will serve riders of the current Manville Heights route, the current riders on the North Downtown Shuttle routes. The destinations served are North Dubuque Street, Peninsula, City Park, Laura Drive. And again, in terms of highlights, it's going to be the same route, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It will provide a more direct route to downtown. The Manville Heights neighborhood would no longer be directly served due to low ridership in areas of greater need, and the walk to transit for Manville Heights residents would be 5 to 10 minutes, depending on which direction you're going, towards the VA hospital or towards North Riverside Drive, which is where the transit access will be for the neighborhood. In terms of bus service, every 30 minutes during peak periods, every 60 minutes, so hourly service midday, hourly service night and weekends, with the hours of service being 6:45 to 7:45 p.m. weekdays, and then 7:15 to 7 p.m. on the weekends. All right, North Dodge, it will look pretty familiar to anyone who has ridden North Dodge. It will use the Market and Jefferson one-way pairs and the Dodge and Governor one-way pairs to travel to North Dodge Street. It will make peak trips into the ACT, peak hour trips only into the ACT campus, and will head over the interstate and turn around at Pearson, much like it does today. So this route will serve riders of the North Dodge route, which is probably not a big surprise. ACT peak hours only is one of the destinations served. The North Dodge Hy-Vee will be on the route, Northgate, Corporate Park, Pearson. The same route again, no matter what time of day, no matter what day of week. And the Caroline Ave area residents that are now served, they'll now be served on Dodge Street with a walk to transit of 5 to 8 minutes, depending on what area you live in. And it will directly serve ACT, as I mentioned, during peak hours only, with hourly service on Saturdays. During the week, you'll have 30-minute service during the AM and PM peak. You'll have 60-minute service midday. The hours of service will be 7 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. And on the weekend, it would be about 7:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. All right, Oakcrest. So anybody who takes Oakcrest this will look extremely familiar because the route has not many changes, maybe just around the interchange, but it will travel on Burlington Street to Melrose, Sunset, Oakcrest Street. It will make that loop on Benton Street and then head back downtown. So no changes to the routing except for maybe how it leaves and enters the interchange downtown. Going to serve riders of our current Oakcrest route, as you might imagine. It will serve the University of Iowa hospitals and clinics. It will serve Oak Knoll. We're not going that far north. It will serve the Oakcrest neighborhood. It will serve Sunset Street. In terms of highlights, same route all the time, which will be nice and easy. A big service improvement on the Oakcrest route is that the service will improve to 15-minute service during the peak period. So during the AM and the PM peak, there's going to be more service there to better serve these high ridership areas, which they are. So 15 minutes during the AM and PM rush. It will be 30 minutes. Bus will come every 30 minutes during the midday. And on the nights and weekends, it's going to be every 60 minutes. And again, it's going to be on the same route. There won't be a special and different Oak Crest night and weekend route anymore. During the weekdays, it'll be 6:30 a.m. till 10:30 p.m. will be the service span. The weekends will be 7:30 to 7:30. All right, another route that looks really familiar, the 9, the Town Crest route. Again, some changes near the interchange in the downtown with how buses circulate, but really it will take Burlington to Muscatine, and it will wind to Wayne and Village and take a left onto Muscatine and head back downtown. Very similar to how it works today. Town Crest is going to serve the riders of Town Crest and the 7th Avenue riders. It will serve the Walgreens and CVS that's on the east side. It will serve the First Ave Hy-Vee, the Town Crest commercial area. Again, we got the same routes no matter what day of the week and what time. The route and bus frequency do not change. So it's the same service level that there is today. So it's going to be every 30 minutes during AM and PM peak, and also midday. It will be every 30 minutes. It will be night and weekends. It will be 60 minutes on night and weekends. Sheridan Avenue residents will be served on Burlington or Muscatine or Kirkwood or Lower Muscatine. So really, Sheridan Avenue residents will be able to choose to go north to transit or south to transit, and it will be about a 5 to 8 minute walk to transit in either direction, whichever is closest for you. Hourly service on Saturdays, and the hours of service is 6:30 a.m. to 10 o'clock p.m. weekdays, and the weekend would be 7 to 7. All right, just getting into the final routes here. So double digits, West Iowa City. This is kind of a new route. So it's going to, from the downtown area, it's going to take Iowa Avenue over the river. It will be the route that goes to the North Hospital area. So this will be Newton Road. It will wind around Hawkins. It will come out on Melrose. Then it will take Mormon Trek, and it will serve the West Side Drive area. It will also serve Raritt Road. There will be a loop in that area, and during the off-peak, there will be a loop that serves the Irving and Shannon Drive areas also. So the West Iowa City is designed to serve riders of the Melrose Express, the Plainview, the Westwinds, the West Side Hospital, by serving the hospitals and clinics in University of Iowa, the North Hospital, Newton Road area, the Pheasant Ridge Housing Development, Fairway, West Side Drive, and Raritt Road. In terms of the service highlights, it's going to have the same route weekdays, nights, weekends, direct service to University of Iowa hospitals and clinics. It will no longer directly serve Melrose Avenue west of Westwinds Drive. So folks that live west of Westwinds would have anywhere from 5, 6, 7 to 10 minute walk to transit, depending on what part of that neighborhood that you live in. The bus service frequency on the West Iowa City will be a nice improvement. It'll be 30 minutes during peak times, and it'll be 30 minutes during the midday as well, which is a nice improvement. Night and weekends, it will be hourly service at 60 minutes. The hours of service will be 6:45 a.m. to 10:45 p.m. and then on the weekends about 7:45 to 7:45. All right, Route 11, Rochester. This is also going to look really familiar for those of you that ride the Rochester route. This will use the one-way pairs, Market and Jefferson Street, to get over to Rochester. We'll proceed out to the east side. Then you'll notice something a little bit different. Basically, we're reversing the loop that happens on the east side. We're turning right onto Mount Vernon Drive, then a left onto Washington Street, a left onto Scott Boulevard, which is different, and then another left onto Rochester. So service is being shifted off of Amherst onto Scott Boulevard to better serve the commercial area, the university hospitals, clinics, that's over on Scott Boulevard. So again, this is going to serve riders of Rochester. It will serve Mercy Hospital, Regina, Hy-Vee Drug Town, Old Town Village commercial area on Scott Boulevard I was just talking about. Same route no matter what time of day. AM and PM peak is going to be 30-minute service, and it's going to be hourly in the midday, hourly on the night and weekends. The service is proposed to run from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. And then on the weekend, it would run 7 to 7:30 p.m. All right, 12, Highway 1. So this route was designed to better serve the Walmart commercial area from both the downtown and from the Mormon Trek area commercial area to provide better service to both. Well, that was something that we heard loud and clear from the community. So this route will take from the downtown, it will take Burlington Street over the river. We'll serve the Riverside Drive commercial area. We'll turn onto Highway 1. It will do a loop through the Walmart commercial area. It will go up Sunset, Benton, and then do a loop in the West Winds Mormon Trek area. And then it will go back to the Walmart commercial area where it will make another trip through Walmart commercial area on its way back downtown. So it's going to serve, the Highway 1 route is designed to serve residents or people who ride Plainview, West Winds, Westport Plaza. It's going to serve Riverside Drive businesses, Highway 1, Walmart, Aldi, the West Side Fairway, Pheasant Ridge. Again, same route no matter what day of the week, what time of day. Again, it's designed to improve access to that Walmart commercial area. And the bus frequency is planned for 30 minutes during AM, 30 minutes for the PM, midday 60 minutes, and night and weekend 60 minutes, with service operating from 6:30 in the morning to 10:45 at night. And on the weekends, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. All right, last but not least, we're on the last route. So thanks for bearing with me. So this is the 13 route. Lucky 13 is South Gilbert Street. So we're going to travel from the interchange on Madison Street, South Capitol Street. We'll loop around the Johnson County Admin Building, and then we'll take South Gilbert all the way down to McAllister Boulevard, where we will make a loop on the old Riverside Drive and the new Riverside Drive area, and we will head right back north back to the downtown. So this is a new route, and a lot of these areas were unserved directly before, but it will serve riders of the current Westport Plaza route. It's meant to serve South Gilbert Street, Napoleon Park, which has not had service before, Terry Trueblood Recreation Area, which has become increasingly popular place to visit. We'll have some direct transit down there. The Kohl's Mobile Home Park, the Campus Rec and Wellness Center will also be accessible through this route. And then, again, same route no matter what time of day of week. And the bus service frequency is going to be 30 minutes during the peak times, 60 minutes midday, 60 minutes night and weekend. Monday through Friday, the service will operate from 6:45 a.m. to 8:15 p.m. And then on the weekends, 7:15 to 6:15 p.m. All right, so thank you everybody for bearing with me. I know that was a lot of information, but I wanted to kind of share some of the high level details on our routes and the service, which is probably the biggest and most important and change that we're making this summer. But that's not the only change that's not the only set of changes that we're making. Effective July 6th, as I mentioned earlier, we are making some changes to fares, passes, and transfers. And all of these are designed to make it easier for you to travel using transit in the metro area. So first and foremost, many of these transit studies end up, or not many of them, but some of them end up with, a potential fare increase. And that's not the case. The fare is going to remain the same. It's going to be a simple $1 fare. Our goal is really to make metro area trips, not just Iowa City trips, but metro area trips too. Make them easier, make the transfers easier, make it easier for people to get around using transit. And we also want to lessen the financial burden and the inconvenience caused by some of those off-peak requirements for seniors, those with disabilities, and for our youth riders. So some of the changes that we're going to be making, first and foremost, all passes and single ride tickets will be able to be used on Iowa City Transit and Coralville Transit effective July 6th, which is great, because some of our passes you can do that now, some of them you can't, and the fact that it's different causes a lot of confusion at the fare box, and it's just something that could be simplified. So we're really excited to make that a nice, simple, full swappability between transit agencies with all of our fares and passes. Again, transfers are going to be allowed at all bus stops in Iowa City, not just the interchange, which is great news. If there is a bus a place where bus routes cross, and that other bus will get you to the Fairway, but this route will get you to the Hy-Vee, and you really want to, hit up the meet counter at Fairway, but you like this and that at Hy-Vee, you don't have to go all the way down to the interchange to do that anymore, which could really inconvenient. It adds time to your trip. So it can be a real time saver to be able to transfer wherever you need to in the system. So that's something that will be available in July. Free transfers between Iowa City Transit and Coralville Transit will continue. So you don't have to worry about, if you're trying to get out to the mall or a Coralville commercial area, you'll be able to use your, ask the driver for a transfer, and it will be free for you to go use Coralville Transit. Seniors 65 plus in our community going forward our honored seniors will receive a free transit on Iowa City Transit, which is pretty exciting news. We're very excited about that. Our disabled passengers will also be able to qualify for free transit for free trips. Medicare card holders also qualify for free transit. And seats card holders will also qualify for free transit, and that will be any time of day. No longer do you have to plan your trips in the middle of the day and check your watch and make sure you get back before the peak time starts. It's any time of day. Those free fares will be available. As I mentioned earlier, the youth fare was reduced from 75 cents, so it was already discounted from the dollar, to 50 cents, which means that the 31-day youth pass was reduced from $27 down to $16, which is much more affordable for families and for youth in our community who want to use transit to get around. We also are going to encourage the Iowa City Community School District students. They use the Iowa City Community School District pass now to use that 31-day pass. So we're going to transition from a semester pass to a 31-day pass, which you're going to get that $16 rate, and they're going to save money. So it's going to be a good thing. The Saturday Family Fare, we did have a Saturday Family Fare that was very rarely used, and we simply discontinued that based on there just wasn't really a demand for it. So trying to clean up the number of fares that we offer and keep it to the ones that are really utilized and of a benefit to the community. All right, so what's next? So I talked about what I just talked about is all the things that are happening this summer. So it's kind of the first phase of the changes coming to the transit system as a result of this transit study, as a result of all the feedback we heard from the community. So what's next after that? So if you rewind back to the beginning of my presentation, you'll remember that I mentioned something about a vision for Iowa City, a vision for transit, and our first objective was figuring out how we can take the money that we have today, the money, the buses, the staffing, the resources, and make it work better for us. But then what could we do, and what needs do we have outside of that? What else is needed? So we kind of called those our vision for Iowa City, and really those are public transportation enhancements that are outside of our current funding. We don't have the funding for these right now, but this is in direct response to the community's needs that we heard from you loud and clear. And clearly there's far more needs than the current funding available. But we took everything that we heard and we presented 9 different ways that we could potentially enhance the transit system or mobility in our community should additional funding be acquired. So the first thing that we looked at is fare-free transit in Iowa City, and that we leaned on the consultant team very heavily, and part of the reason they were selected is because they have set up fare-free systems. They've helped communities go fare-free in other places in the United States successfully. So we wanted to know from them, what would our ridership look like? What would the costs associated with that be? And so we were able to put together kind of a proposal for what that would look like. We also asked the consultant team to help us develop a scenario for really, kind of top shelf, top level transit system. And they translated that into 15-minute service on your most important corridors. So that was the second enhancement that we came up with. If you really want to create a service system that people don't have to think about at all, and you just wander out to the stop and a bus is going to be there before too long, it's really the gold standard is 15-minute service. So that was a scenario that we put together. Sunday service, we clearly heard from the public that Sunday service and having 7 days a week service would be a big benefit, and it's something that's not available today. So we have a scenario for that, or a potential enhancement scenario. We also heard improving our Saturday service and to expand it later in the evening was something the community desired that's outside of our current budgeting, our funding levels. Late night weekday service to expand the fixed route bus service till midnight on all routes was another thing we heard from the community. So we put together a proposal for what that would look like and what those costs would be. We also looked at on-demand night owl service. So night owl is kind of the industry term for overnight service. So really, finding a partner in the community that can help people who work third shift or who work part of their shift when transit's available, but part of their shift when transit isn't available. So we put together a scenario for that. We put together a scenario based surrounded around the concept of providing, on-demand service in low-density neighborhoods where there's maybe not a lot of ridership. Not that there's zero need, but maybe there's not a ton of ridership, or maybe there just isn't the population density to ever generate, a substantial number of riders. So maybe on-demand services potential options. So we provided, we put together a potential enhancement for that. Two different potential route additions. One is a cross-town route that would potentially serve the Highway 1, Highway 6 corridor without necessarily going downtown. And then an additional South Iowa City route. And so that's kind of what as growth is occurring in the South District, kind of over in the Terry Trueblood area across the street, across the way over there. They helped, the consultant team helped us kind of envision what the next potential route could be for Iowa City and understand the costs associated with that. So those are the 9 enhancements that we, based on everything that we heard from you all, everything we heard from the community, that we said, okay, let's present this information, because this is the needs that we're hearing that aren't currently met. So in the fall of 2020, we took all of those potential service enhancements and we took them to the city council, and we asked for them to help prioritize. And so which of these should we focus on? Understanding what the community wants, what the costs are associated, and the city council prioritized Sunday bus service. They prioritized some sort of later service. They prioritized night owl overnight service. And then at the March 6th meeting, which was just last month, we brought to the city council at not their council meeting, but at their work sessions, both of these are work sessions, we brought to the council some potential options on how we could serve the public using some potential different options for transportation services. And the council at that point directed staff to plan for a 2-year Sunday service bus pilot, which will commence later this year or early 2022. Again, it will mirror the proposed Saturday schedule, and then further explore on-demand options for late night and overnight service. So they think that there's some good potential options in the area for partnership for an on-demand service that could really help people get where they're going when transit service turns down at night. All right, so another thing we heard loud and clear from the public, and something that we are certainly really excited about, but is just, electric vehicles in general are all the rage, and we're all hearing about them, and all the major auto companies are investing in them, and it's kind of an exciting time to be in transportation. But we're also really excited about introducing battery electric buses to Iowa City. So we heard loud and clear that was something the public was really interested and excited about, and we are too. And 4 diesel buses this fall will be replaced with the Proterra ZX5, which is the bus that you see there, battery electric buses this fall. We're very excited. We had a demo bus here last month. They are whisper quiet. I mean, you could literally, any of us, you get off the back of the bus and it's the loudest place on earth. Sometimes it feels like, because the diesel, the exhaust is right there, and it can be loud. You walk off the bus, you take 2 or 3 steps, and you can't even hear that the bus is running. It's really quiet, clearly, you know, cleaner environmentally, certainly greener, unbelievably quiet. And again, the test rides that we took on them were pretty amazing. It's very stable. It does not shift a lot. I think it's because of the location of the batteries. It's just a really comfortable ride. We think you're all going to really enjoy it. The other benefits is clearly reduced carbon emissions, you know, reduced noise and air pollution, cleaner, healthier air for Iowa City. And another bonus is that 61% of the energy used to power these buses will be renewable. So that's mostly wind. That's Mid-American Energy's current energy mix. So, and their goal is to go 100% renewable. So in theory, in a few years, we could be running an entire transit system off of completely renewable energy, which is pretty amazing, and we're thrilled about it. So we hope you are as excited, but keep your eyes peeled this fall. Those buses will be coming. All right, so next steps. We kind of went through a lot of details, so let's talk about what's next. So on June 1st, we're going to host a public hearing on the proposed changes at the City Council meeting. So if you'd like to propose, or if you'd like to give council formal comments in person, you are welcome to come to the public hearing. You can also submit comments to myself. I'll have my email address on the screen, or the email address on the screen in a few minutes. Comments, questions, anything that you want to reach out about. The City Council at that meeting will also formally consider adoption of the Iowa City Area Transit Study Plan, which will enable us to move forward. On July 6th, the plan is to launch the fare and transfer policy changes. So that will be a date you want to keep in mind as the summer progresses. And the date you really want to keep on your radar is August 2nd. And I don't think you're going to be able to not keep it on your radar, because we're going to be talking pretty loud about it. We'll be downtown. You'll see it on social media. You'll see it in press releases. You'll likely see it on the news. So on that date, we'll begin using the routes, the stops, and the new bus schedule. So what's coming after that? So those aren't the only changes that are going to come as a result of the transit study. We heard loud and clear there are many aspects of the transit system that we can work on to help make it better for those who ride it today, and an easier choice for the rest of the community. Of course, we're launching those electric buses we talked about. The Sunday service pilot will come next. Again, we're evaluating that late evening and overnight on-demand service option, so we hope to have more information on that soon. We're developing a plan for bus stop improvement to make them more accessible, to make them more comfortable. You'll see more bus shelters out in the community, which are really nice. Not only do they shelter you from the wind, the rain, and the cold to the extent that they can, but they also have solar lights, so that's kind of nice for when you're traveling at night. So you'll see more of that. There'll be improved communication tools in terms of our website and just all the ways in which we get in touch with you. The transit app. We're hoping to improve our ticket availability and evaluate mobile ticketing. So that will be something that's kind of on our roadmap. And many communities are moving to an option, a smartphone-based, cell phone-based pass option, which could be really convenient. You wouldn't have to necessarily dig for your pass, and if your pass is bent, it doesn't always work, and you wouldn't have to worry about those things. So that's something that's on our roadmap. And then evaluating potential options for a low-income program. Those are kind of the next phase, the next few phases of what we have planned. All right, so thank you all so much for bearing with me. I know that was a long presentation. We have a lot of information to share, and first and foremost, I wanted to give you our email address. If you have any questions or comments about anything that you saw tonight, that's a great way to get it to us. We can get you a response pretty quickly. You can also call Transportation Services. Our number is listed there if you have any questions. Or you can access the Transit Study website. All of the information you see tonight, including the presentation, will be posted. We have flyers for every single individual route. If you just are curious about one or two routes that you normally take, you can print one off of the internet. And then again, I wanted to remind you about the public hearing at the City Council. You can send comments to us. We can pass them along to the council via the IC Transit, or you could provide any comments to the City Council at that meeting on June 1st. So, time for me to stop talking and to hear from some of you. Mr. Rummel, I don't know if we have anybody out there who's got any questions, either in the chat or anybody who would like to ask any questions. Just feel free to raise your hand.
So we've had some activity in the chat kind of throughout the presentation. So maybe we can cover a few of those. Looks like a couple hands are coming up right now too. Maybe I'll go through a few chats and then we can do some hand raising and kind of go back and forth a little bit. A couple of the chat ones, I think you've answered through the presentation, but I'll go through them real quick for you and get any comments that you want from there. So let's see, a lot of positive feedback on the transit app. Someone had requested a posting for where to get it for Android and iPhone. So we put those on the chat.
Great.
It's also on the city's website. We've got a link on the under the transit page of the transit app, but those links have been posted in the chat space. So hopefully that helps you out. Here's a question that kind of came up twice. I think the second time was to clarify it, but will there be stops added to Mormon Trek going eastbound? So Mormon Trek goes north and south, but later the question sort of got clarified. I think the question is, will there be stops on the east side of Mormon Trek so that you can travel inbound, basically east on Melrose? And we've got, so we've got a couple stops. Let's see, I was trying to work with Curtis on this one because our draft maps don't necessarily show every stop, and the fact that we had to kind of zoom out on some of those, it's not exactly clear. Curtis, do you want to unmute and maybe talk about the couple stops? Well, maybe he's not going to. Oh, go ahead.
There he is.
Oh, we lost him.
Okay.
He had sent me a text that there's one on Cameron Way. One
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Curtis.
Hello, Curtis.
Oh, yeah. Hi. Sorry about that. Yes, the answer is yes. We will have stops on the east side of Mormon Trek for people needing to get downtown. One of the sites, these are going to be brand new with pads and all that. One of the stops will be at Mormon Trek and Cameron Way. That's directly across Mormon Trek from the current stop that's there. Basically directly across Mormon Trek from the Credit Union Bank that's there. Another one will be at Mormon Trek and Benton Street. The exact placement of that is still being worked on as there's that turn lane there now. So we're kind of having to figure out a decent place to put it that's safe for everybody. And depending on where on Mormon Trek you are, there's one that's always been there at Mormon Trek and Abbey further down, and one at, if memory serves, I believe it's at Mormon Trek and Grin. So there'll be several stops, including a few new ones, so we'll be able to take to get back inbound.
Thanks, Curtis. If that was not your question, please raise your hand or send another chat. But I think that was what you were asking, was how to get inbound, basically, to travel east from the west side of town. All right, excellent. Here's a question about, do you expect to get money from the American Rescue Plan, ARP? Do you want to talk about some of that, Darian, the funding that we've been receiving?
Sure, we do expect to get an allocation from that. That information hasn't been finalized yet. It will be distributed ultimately through the MPO, but we do expect to get some coronavirus emergency funding, if you will, and that's the funding that we're using to help to earmark for the 2-year Sunday service pilot. We're really going to use that to help prop up our operations. As you might imagine, you know, our revenue has decreased due to ridership decreases, which is, you know, expected. And part of the reason, you know, this money has been earmarked federally is to help support transit systems through kind of this tough time. And part of the plan with the emergency funds is really to help support and improve the transit system. So that's where that Sunday service pilot funding will come from.
Excellent. The next question will schedules for number 1 South Iowa City and number 12 South Gilbert be coordinated to provide even more frequent service on South Gilbert commercial area near Big Grove. So as Darian mentioned, our actual schedules for each of these routes we'll have out and ready for review in June. We're still kind of working out a few of the details. So I don't have a great answer for you on that, but given the frequency that all of these routes are going to have, and the fact that there'll be 2 routes that'll travel right past there, I mean, it's expected that service will be rather frequent. I don't know if exactly what your question's asking as far as how often. I don't have that answer, but I think you'll see a lot of service going through there. Okay. The next one, will individual buses still operate 2 to 3 routes on a given day? Previously at the downtown interchange, buses would switch to another route, Plainview, Mall, Rochester. Will this still be done with the new routes, or will buses continue on the same route at the interchange? So this is one that Curtis answered through the chat a little bit. And again, we're still kind of finalizing the exact schedules. There will be some that are interline. We call this interlining, where buses change routes down at the interchange. We're still planning on a few of those, but not every route, and it will be different from the current situation. I don't know that we're quite prepared to give specifics on which route. I think there were a couple other chats that were asking for specific details on which routes would interchange, but that information will be provided shortly. Within a few weeks in June is really what we're shooting for. Here's a question: which way on Lakeside Drive? I'm not real clear on what that question's referring to, other than if you're asking which direction we're traveling down Lakeside Drive. And Darian went through the maps. I suppose we could pull that up again, but we do travel outbound and inbound on Lakeside Drive.
Yep. I think the answer to that would be both directions.
Yeah, both directions would be.
Yep, it will. And again, that's because many of our routes used to be kind of circuitous, and they would kind of be circular. So maybe you're used to only traveling one direction on some of the roads, and we really tried to make the system more of an out and back on the same route to keep things simpler, to make reduce the amount of time you're spending on the bus, to reduce the amount of time you're kind of going in the opposite direction of maybe where you want to be going. So it would be both directions on Lakeside Drive.
Yep. Here's a question: if riders are meant to start utilizing Iowa City Transit and CAN bus to get to a destination, most likely transferring at the interchange, it will be necessary to educate the public on how those interchanges will happen and what the CAN bus routes are.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, and one of the big things with this transit study is we looked at, again, places where Coralville, CAN bus, and Iowa City were really overlapping service, and one of those that was pretty clear was to the hospital. So we were sending a lot of empty seats over to the university hospitals. So one of the things that we looked at is how to make our system work better and more efficiently, so we can rededicate resources to other areas and not have so many empty seats. And as Mark mentioned, CAN bus has got a lot of service over to, as you might imagine, to the university hospitals. And in the proposal between CAN bus and Iowa City, 9 routes every hour will go over to the North Hospital area. If you add Coralville in, it's 15 buses during the peak hours. So, I mean, all of Coralville buses go that way, but you're absolutely right. It's a new way of thinking about using our whole system as opposed to just using Iowa City Transit. So we're going to make sure that we are really familiar with how CAN bus operates and how many times an hour, which is almost every 5 minutes, really one of our buses will go over to the North Hospital. And we need to become experts on, the CAN bus system and the Coralville system, So we can coach our passengers how to get over to the hospital in the most efficient way possible. And the good news is it's going to happen, because there are literally buses every 5, maybe it's a smidge of an hour during peak times every 10 minutes, but mostly every 5 minutes.
Yep. The next question is about the route change that is affecting Friendship. So the question is there a lot of feedback against changing Court Street to not go down Friendship? This will impact ridership a lot, as the entire neighborhood will have to walk either Muscatine or Court to catch a bus, which will significantly add time to their commute, thus inconveniencing them to drive. Why wasn't this change based on actual riders on that route? Are you going to propose or post brightly colored signs on the stops that will go away to let riders know where to provide the information on the new route, feedback as soon as possible, so that changes can be considered?
So first, I'll answer the last question first, which is, will we be posting notices on the signs? And yes, we will absolutely be posting notices on the signs they're going to be consolidated, and we're going to direct people to where they need to go or where they will need to go. Our goal is to have that up in the month before preceding, so that there's plenty of time. We won't be posting signs the day before saying, "Hey, quick, pay attention! You're not going to be able to use this stop tomorrow." We're gonna get them up pretty early, and so yes, that's to your second point. I'm scrolling back, going backwards in time here, scrolling back to the Court Street loop, and I gotta shift some things around so I can see the whole screen. So the thought is that the Court Street riders or the Friendship riders would use the stops, and if I have a moment here, would use the proposed stops at Friendship and Court, or at the Westminster Court stop, which is accessible through that trail crossing, or the Washington Park stop. And all of those are approximately about a 3 to 6 minute walk, depending on where you're at on Friendship Street. I wish I could point, but you can't see my mouse, but that's about what the walk time is to those 3 stops on Washington Street. So that was kind of the intent, was to direct all of the transit ridership to the Court Street corridor, and again, to be able to provide that higher frequency 30-minute service to the east side via the Court Street corridor, and for those passengers who live on Friendship Street.
Yep. A couple questions had popped up about the timing and about buses running earlier. So this first one, is there any way that 10 West Iowa City route could start earlier? Many of the people who ride the current West Winds, Plainview, or Westside Hospital routes are employees of the hospital, need to be to work at 7 a.m. But if the route doesn't start until 6:45 from downtown, we will not be able to make it to work on time.
Oh, gotcha, loud and clear. We can take a look at that. I can't tell you off the cuff whether that's a possibility, but I can tell you that we can take a look at it. And if you sent an email, or if you're able to provide your email address through the chat, we can get back in touch with you on that one.
Yep, for sure. The next one, Peninsula Bus serves Forest View Trailer Court. So I think that's just a question if it's going to continue.
Yes, it will. For as long as that mobile home park is located there. I understand there's a potential for redevelopment of that property. We will provide ultimately service to whatever is that property is redeveloped to, if that is the case. So yes, we will continue to provide service to Forest View.
Okay. At this point, would there be a way to request that an existing stop route be maintained, stop on a route be maintained, or are the proposed stop consolidations already set?
I would be willing to hear out anyone who had specific some specific thoughts on a stop. Again, we're trying to maintain this bus service frequency and to keep you all on the buses, give you guys give everyone reasonable access to the stops and keep the service on time and reliable. You know, we could take a look at it. If you wanted to submit a question, we could take a look. I can't make any guarantees though.
Right. How has the impact of Peninsula riders getting to the hospital complex been considered?
It's been, so yeah, right. So Peninsula riders or currently Manville Heights riders won't have a 1-seat ride to the hospital anymore, but they will have the ability to transfer, and likely within 5 minutes, to either a CAM bus or an Iowa City route or potentially a Coralville route. I would recommend CAM bus out of the two because you don't have to request a transfer from Iowa City to use it on CAM bus. You could just step off the Iowa City bus and hop on the next Penacrest, Think by Penacrest or Hawkeye Penacrest bus that comes by, and it will take you directly to the hospital in another 5 minutes. So again, that was considered holistically when we started looking at our service from the interchange to the hospital between the 3 systems. Said, we have a lot of overlapping service and we're sending a lot of empty seats over to the hospital. How do we make this more efficient? Part of that's going to be us educating our passengers on that you can transfer, and here's the buses you take, and here's the times they come, which is very frequent from the interchange.
So here's a question about the transit app. In this person lived in Iowa City, now in New Jersey. The app in New Jersey sounds like shows the bus number, shows kind of an occupancy, a percentage of full on the bus, which are very useful tools, it sounds like, when the bus arrives, which I understand. So the question is if our transit app could provide that information. I can tell you, my guess is with the capacity number, the occupancy number, there's probably automated passenger counter devices on those buses that's capturing the number of people entering and exiting and pushing that data out to the app. Currently, Iowa City does not have those on our buses. And I'm not sure if we can post the bus number on that transit app. Any ideas on that, Darian? We can definitely look into it.
We will definitely look into it. So the bus numbers will become part of our description of the buses. So it'll be, you mean the actual bus number, or we talk about the route number? I guess I should
it's
clarify.
the actual bus number, so that
okay.
You know, you're looking for bus 80 and it's pulling up next.
Yeah, well, we can look into that. I'm not sure what the transit app. So the reason why the transit app is such a paradigm shift from the Bongo app was the Bongo app was developed locally way ahead of its time and served, you know, just our local area, whereas the transit app is a nationwide app. Another reason to get the transit app, you can go to Chicago, you can go to San Francisco. You don't have to know anything about transit. You just have your transit app and you can use it there. So the benefit to that is they have a lot more features and it's kind of maintained nationally. So it wouldn't surprise me if they have more capabilities. So that's something we can certainly look into.
Okay. Will the bus stop on Amherst and Washington still be used or moved to a different spot?
Curtis or Gus, can you address that? I know we will have a stop there. It will likely be moved to the opposite side of the street. Would that not be correct? All right.
Hi, okay. Yeah.
Hello, Curtis.
So, hi, yeah, I was not unmuting for some reason. The answer to the question is yes, it will be across Washington Street and down about a block to the intersection of Washington and Kamen Street. And we'll be also installing a shelter there along with a nice pad. And so it really isn't that much farther from the current stop at all, but it'll that access to a stop is going to be maintained for those folks that use that particular stop in Amherst and Washington.
Okay, but opposite side of the street because
opposite
of the
side
reversing of the loop.
Correct, and down about half a block or so.
Thanks, Curtis.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay, Our next one is, let's see where, just another one about traveling east on Mormon Trek. We covered that one. Will the buses still have bicycle racks? I think they're referring to the new electric buses.
Yes.
They will have bike racks on there.
Definitely will have bike racks on them.
Oh, before that, we did get a woohoo. I think that was for electric buses.
Yay. Yay for the woohoo.
We're all saying woohoo as
We're
well.
excited too.
I've heard Iowa City Transit will be getting 4 Proterra buses and retiring some old diesel buses. I'm guessing the 2007 Gillick low floors. But other than the buses should be the same as before. So I'm almost certain there will be still bike. Oh, I'm sorry. That was just a response to the bike racks. Okay. We're getting to questions that I did not get to pre-read. So
okay.
They came in a little fast there toward the end.
Yep.
I did see this one. Will there be designated transfer points outside of downtown that multiple routes might have similar time points to make transferring outside of downtown more dependable? So I think the question is, are there going to be certain parts or points where different routes will cross and we'll try and manipulate the schedule so that those transfers are easier?
Yeah, I think that's a really good thought. I can't tell you that quite yet because the schedule hasn't been finalized. But that is something that we're keeping in mind now that we can, now that we are going to be able to offer transfers at locations outside the interchange.
Yep. Then a couple other people second and third that question. It sounds like something people are interested in. Another comment, I would love 15-minute service. Let's see. So speaking of crosstown route, back when I lived in Iowa City, I always felt the crosstown route from west side Iowa City to Coralville, Iowa City to Coral Ridge Mall, as an example, would have been really helpful for west side residents wanting to go to Coralville, so they wouldn't have to transfer downtown or North Hospital. But because Coralville Transit is a separate agency, I'm guessing there could be an issue with this. And then I think there was some more discussion a little bit about just the possibility of combining Iowa City, Coralville, CAMBUS. There's some comments about like Cyride and a few other locations where universities or colleges and cities kind of come together and make one system. So I guess if you want to touch on that, that might cover a few of these questions. Yeah,
sure. So yeah, there are some regional systems that have potentially had, multiple agencies combined together. We're not quite, I don't believe we're quite at the population threshold for a technical regional system, which is DART in Des Moines as an example of a regional system that serves all of the metro area. So it's not to say that it couldn't happen locally. I don't know if there is the political support to do that at this exact time. But I will tell you one of the big impetuses with the transit study, and the reason why Coralville Transit was asked to come along to the transit study, and CAMBUS also, which we were excited that they both did, is so that we can learn how to operate, find out ways that we can operate our 3 agency system better and make it work better for the community, rather than having kind of 3 independent transit systems kind of doing their own thing. So there's, I think there's some, especially with the fare and transfer policies, it's especially significant. But we're definitely focusing on ways that we can improve our 3 agency system, make us work better, make metro area commutes easier, because we are becoming, increasingly interconnected in this metro area. So we see that there's definitely a value in finding ways that we can make those cross metro area trips more efficient.
One question / comment that was kind of in with that regional transit question was about a 1 year, like an annual, more durable plastic card pass, so that you spend less time feeding the machine and possible jams in the machine. So
got it. Yep, I can see the benefit to that.
Yep, for sure. Next couple of questions about the Proterra electric buses that we've got coming. So somebody is asking what bus numbers, the new numbers for those buses are going to be.
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah, and which ones they're replacing. So we can try and unmute Scott here.
Yeah, Scott, you could probably name those off the top of your head, the buses that are being replaced. And if you have any insight as to what the new buses will be numbered, I certainly do not.
So they are replacing 37, 38, 57, and 59.
Got it right there.
Our newer numbers. If Scott unmutes, maybe he's got a game plan already for those. I'm not sure if they're going to take right off from where we left off.
So we don't have currently the numbers for the new buses yet. Part of that's VIN number dependent, and we don't have any of that because they aren't built yet.
Yep, they're just a twinkle in our eye at this point. So it sounds like once we get them here, those numbers will be developed then.
Yep, there you go. Okay, so here's one. Service till 12 a.m. would match Coralville service and let second shift workers get home safe. So that may have came up when you were talking about some of the different timings on a few routes.
Yeah, so that was one of the transportation service enhancements that we proposed. We presented to the city council. We presented that as a potential option for improving later evening service. And I think the thought from the council and the direction we received is to look further into some on-demand options to help bridge that gap. And I think also part of that rationale, let me back it up for a second, bridge that gap after transit service ends. And I think part of that rationale on the council's behalf may have been that, we are looking at some sort of an overnight potential service as well, which would have to be an on-demand. There's very few transit systems in the United States that run overnight because of just the decreased demand. So the thought may have been, let's look at kind of an on-demand type of alternative that would start as soon as transit, wraps up for the evening, and then would run through the early, late evening up until midnight, and then could run potentially overnight as well. So I think that's part of the thought behind that direction we got from council to look into those specific options.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So there was a question, a few comments about the Coralville changes and the CAN bus changes, if there was going to be a presentation on those. Somebody else already had commented that Coralville already implemented some changes. So they did join us through this study, and Coralville did implement some changes. I believe it was last month, maybe 2 months ago. Maybe it was longer than that. But as far as the fare changes and the pass changes, transfers, things like that Darren talked about between us and Coralville, that will all go in effect in July. But I don't know of any other presentations that Coralville or Canvas plan between now and then. Do you, Darren?
No, I think about the bulk of their changes. I would say we are heavy on the changes. We have the most changes of each of the transit agencies by far. So Canvas and Coralville were able to really make their tweaks to service, which last fall, basically. So at the start of the school year. And like I said earlier, we had planned to launch some of our major changes last summer, but we simply, because of the time that we had to kind of take away from the study to focus on pandemic operations, we simply didn't have the time because our changes are just, they're a lot more significant in terms of the number and the scope of changes. So, but if you have any questions, about any of their changes, we're happy to chat with you or direct you to the person in Coralville or Canvas who can help you out with those questions.
Okay, let's see. A lot of thank yous. A lot of people seem to enjoy the presentation. Let's see. Oh, there's a chat from Justin who's asking how to raise his hand. Justin, if you want to unmute, or if I see I can unmute you. If you had a question, we can certainly, let's see, Justin. try it over here. Well, oh, there he is.
Oh, sorry. I just mentioned I had a question earlier, but it was answered.
Oh, okay. Okay. I just want to make sure we covered everything that you had. So, okay, great. Good deal.
Mark, are we through the chat questions, or do we still have some more?
There's a few more.
Okay.
That was just a question that popped up in the chat. So,
Okay.
one question: what if you don't have a cell phone? Will you still contact local media? Not maybe that was during our discussion about the transit app and the notifications. We try and push out as many notifications as we can through as many avenues as possible with Facebook, different social media posts, press releases through the website.
Yeah, and you could sign up for, we have an email list on our website that Curtis sends out messages when we have detours, service notifications, things like that come up. You could sign up for an email. You can get an email notification, which sounds like it might be helpful. So you could check out, it's icgov.org/transit at the very bottom.
Yep. A couple more comments just about the earlier routes, which you addressed already. Here's a question: will the alternative downtown bus stop be improved? Football, construction, will the signage stops be improved? Not exactly certain of that question. If you want to try and re-ask it, unless you're referring to when we move the interchange a couple times a year for festivals and the parade, we move it to Court Street. That was from John. If you want to ask or clarify that, John, that'd be great. Let's see.
We will be, I can say that we will, clearly with the rethinking and the reimagining of our routes, we will be imagining our football day service as well, because that's, as you might imagine, greatly impacted by football traffic. And we do have certain signs out there for football game day routing and service, and those signs will likely be replaced, and we will have kind of a new strategy for handling game day traffic that will be announced as we get closer to football season. But if you're referring to some of the signage too that we have out there when we have to move the interchange, we do have plans for new signage, and we're actually piloting that downtown. So if you've been on a bus in the last week or so, you probably noticed new kind of large sign holders announcing about this meeting tonight, and also announcing about the changes that are coming this summer. We also plan to use more of that kind of signage to help notify when the transit interchange needs to be moved for downtown festivals, which happens a few times every year.
There's a question about, will Green Mountain Drive stop be across the street for Rochester route?
Curtis, can you answer that? I feel like the answer is yes, but I want to double check.
Yes, that's correct. We're just going to be moving it across the street.
Okay. Excellent. Let's see. I think that might be all our questions. There's just a few other kind of comments here and there, but I think that's all the questions in the chat. Let's see if anybody's got their hand raised. Don't see any hands raised right now.
All right. Well, if anybody thinks of a question, by all means, raise your hand. We'd be happy to answer it. In the meantime, I wanted to let you know about, again, the information that we have posted on the icgov.org/transit study website. Might be a place you can look for any of the follow-up information from tonight, or if you have more questions about a particular route, you could download flyers. We also have them translated in 4 different languages if that's helpful to you or somebody you might know. And again, that ictransit@iowa-city.org email is a great way to shoot us any questions after you've had time to kind of digest this all. There's a lot of information we threw at you. We'd be happy to answer any questions in the future. It looks like Justin's got his hand up. I can see one hand. Justin, do you have a question? Be happy to answer.
Oh yeah, so my question is, so with the 2017 and 2018 Gillick Low floors have got a new livery, are there plans to repaint the older buses like the 2010 and the 2012 Gillick Low floors, or are they going to stay in their old livery? And will the Proteras be receiving like the same livery as the 2017 and 18 Gillick Low floors? Would it be like in like a different livery, like maybe like say like emphasizing the fact that they're like electric?
Yes. They will not look, the new electric buses will have a bus wrap on them, and they will look very different. We don't have all the details of what that is, but I will definitely tell you it will highlight the fact that they're electric.
That'll be cool.
Yeah, they will look very different. You will, I mean, they'll stand out. You'll be able to see them coming no matter what, but they're going to really look different because they have a wrap on them. And yes, we have also considered and contemplated wrapping some of our older buses too, because to either you know, advertise some feature that we have with the city, you know, our Parks and Rec department, or you know, give them a new look. You've probably all seen the CAN bus buses that have wraps on them that highlight features of the
hospital one.
Hospital, yeah, exactly. So you could very well see some new wraps on. You will see new wraps on our electric buses. They will look different, and you perhaps expect to see some on our older buses.
Okay.
Thank you, Justin.
We have another hand up here. Hold on. Dawn, if you've unmuted, go ahead.
Oh, hi, thanks. I was wondering, I know you did show the electric buses, but is the reason the regular buses can't have a door that's like way at the back of the bus versus the middle is because of the engine?
That's a very good question. Scott Amlong, would you be able to offer some insight on that?
That's correct. Because of the engines, and also even on the battery buses, there are certain workings that, you know, things carry over that, yeah, it would be, you know, like a 4-foot step down to the street from where battery packs and associated controllers and stuff are.
Okay.
Good
All right.
question. Thanks, Dawn. All right. Well, it appears, I'm not seeing any hands, so it appears as if we're at the end of the presentation and the Q&A tonight. And let me just say thank you to you all for attending tonight. Thank you for participating in the transit study and for giving your feedback along the way. It's been really amazing to be able to hear from everybody and to be able to take everything that you've brought to us and be able to kind of design and reimagine our transit system for the future. So we owe a debt of gratitude to you all, and thanks for participating. We look forward to having more conversations with you as we move through the implementation process. Don't hesitate, again, to reach out to us via our email address. I'll put that on the screen one more time. Via our email, my contact information. Sorry to fly through this so quickly. The head dizzying speed, but here's again our information: Iowa City Transit at iowacity.org, 5151-356-5151. There's our website, and again, we're happy to entertain any comments or questions you might have.
Hey, Darian, I did miss one question, and I saw it earlier. Sorry about that. Someone was asking about the electric buses and how they handle in the ice, snow, and weather here in Iowa. So We can, we're pretty confident that these are gonna work great for us. They currently are using them in the Quad Cities. Des Moines has some.
Duluth has some, they're all over. And really the question is a lot like electric cars in the winter. Yes, they continue to have the traction control and anti-lock braking systems that assist in snow.
And the biggest drawback seems to be, and it's same like Scott said with electric cars, is the mileage that you can get on a charge. And we all know with any battery, anybody who bike commutes with bike lights, any batteries that are kept in the cold, they don't have as much power. They can't go as far. So that's kind of that is the potential drawback to using battery in cold weather climates, but it's being successfully deployed, like Scott said, all the way north in Duluth, just down the road in the Quad Cities. Des Moines got electric buses. They just went through their first winter with electric buses. So the battery performance is getting to a point where it's becoming less and less of an issue, which is pretty exciting. And that's one of the reasons why we're ready to transition, and we're really excited to transition. And we've been kind of waiting to transition to electric.
All right.
All right. Well, with that, again, I want to say thank you again for coming tonight. Let us know what questions and comments you have, or let us know what questions we can answer. We're here to help. And I guess with that, I'll just say good night to everybody, and thanks again.